The Lord would give them Moses. He gave them Joshua. And he would give them judges. And they would do good while the judges was living. As soon as the judges died down, they went back doing the same old thing. He would give them kings, and the kings would lift themselves up in pride. And finally, he would give them something called a prophet. And a prophet was always a Hebrew, always a male, and other than Jonah, always spoke to God's people. But the prophet didn't speak what they wanted to say. This prophet had to speak what the Lord wanted to say. He always had to speak what thus said the Lord. Prophet after prophet would try to warn the people of their wicked ways. But the more the prophets talk, the more the people close not only their ears, but they also would close their hearts. The prophet by the name of Ezekiel told them, the children of Israel, I've looked at them, but they look like a valley full of nothing but dry bones. The prophet by the name of Amos tried to warn them. He said, I've judged the children of Israel by my plumb line, and I can see they ain't nothing but cricket. The prophet by the name of Hosea, he got so disgusted that the Lord told Hosea, said, just leave Ephraim. Sometimes it was called Ephraim. He said, just leave Ephraim alone. She's tied to an idol. You see, sometimes the Lord just going to let you run astray. See, I often say, and a lot of times the Lord not going to take the habit from you. He's going to take you away from that habit. He said, just leave Ephraim alone. She's tied to an idol. Michael tried to warn them. The great Michael called them just some evildoers. And Zephaniah said, you better reckon, because your day of reckoning is about to come. But prophet after prophet, they still refuse to hear the word of the Lord. It's amazing how the Lord shows so much compassion to us. It's amazing how the Lord gives us so many chances. Somebody say the Lord gives us a second chance, but I don't know about you. The Lord gave me more than a second chance. The Lord keeps giving me chance after chance after chance after chance. He's just that kind of God. He's more than a second chance God. And what I might know about the Lord has blessed me when I was right. And Lord knows he has blessed me even when I'm wrong. He has blessed me when I deserve it. And Lord knows you bless me, Lord, when I don't even deserve it. And I know you are a God of chances. You see, the God we serve don't count slackness as other men count slackness. For God has one desire, and that desire is that all men, and that includes women, should be saved. And I'm glad I serve a God like that. He was eventually raised up the prophet by the name of Jeremiah. And Jeremiah would run up and down the streets trying to warn the people of the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. But the Lord told Jeremiah, they're not listening to you, Jeremiah. He said, Jeremiah, do you realize can an Ethiopian change his skin color? He said, can a leopard change his spots? And the answer is no. He told Jeremiah to pull off your girdle, Jeremiah, and go and bury it down in the Euphrates River. Jeremiah took off his garment and went down and buried it in the rocks of the Euphrates River. And after a period of time, the Lord told him to go back and get your garments and tell me what you see. Jeremiah went down to the rocks of the Euphrates river and pulled out his garment. And he told the Lord, my garment is ruined, my garment is rotten, my garment is no good. And the Lord said the same thing you said about that garment. It's the same thing I'm saying about Israel. For they are ruined and they are no good. The Lord has a way, though, of showing us sometimes better than he can tell us. And I often say he'll use whatever tool he has. And if he has to put us on our back, to put us on the right track, then the Lord is able and he's willing to do so. The Lord will raise up by the name of Nebuchadnezzar the second, the Babylonian king. And he would come in from the north. And he would come in with one mission. And that mission was to destroy the great city, the great temple there of Jerusalem. He would come in as evening wolves, wolves that have not eaten all day long. He gave simple instructions when you come to Jerusalem. He said, I want you to bring out, though, first the best of the young men without spot, and young men without blemishes, young men that can stand and are teachable in the king's court. So as they came and marched on the city of Jerusalem, the first young men they would take would be a young prince by the name of Daniel. And they would take Daniel and his three friends. We better know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. While on his first raid there, he was also robbed the temple of all his precious silverware, all the forks and spoons and cups and all of the knives. He would raid the city of his people, those of the brightest mind, those without any kind of spot, and those without any kind of blemishes. The great king could have destroyed the city at one time, but they decided not to do so because they would have to pay for their protection. He put a puppet king in by the name of Zedekiah, and all Zedekiah would have to do was pay Nebuchadnezzar for protection and to be his guide. After a period of time, however, after the first raid of Jerusalem, some 8 years later, Zedekiah decided, I'm no longer going to pay the great king Nebuchadnezzar. I'm going to form an allegiance with another company by the name of Egypt. But you got to be careful when people push you out on a limb. People tell you what they're going to do, and if you do this, I'm going to do that. People will set you up, or as my mama said, they'll put you out, and then they'll saw Egypt didn't do what they said they was going to do, and the great king by the name of Nebuchadnezzar got mad. He came back the second time, and he took a young prophet by the name of Ezekiel. But as the time would roll on, and they quit paying him what they call tribute money, Nebuchadnezzar decided, I'm going to come back this time to destroy the whole city of Jerusalem. But the way he would do it was first he would barricade the city. In other words, he set up a barricade around the city for the next 2 years where nothing could go out of the city but into the city. nobody could come into your house. Could you imagine what would happen to your food supply? If they cut off your water, all you didn't save, what would happen to your water supply? That would be the strategy that Nebuchadnezzar used. For 2 years, nothing could go out of the city and nothing could come in to the city. Therefore, inside of the city walls, people began to die of thirstation. Inside of the walls, people began to die of starvation. The book of Lamentation describes how the color of the people began to change. Cannibalism became the thing of the day. And cannibalism means when one began to eat each other. Mothers began to eat their babies. The prophet by the name of Jeremiah was confused about the things he was seeing. He said, Lord, I don't understand how you allow the same baby that was bounced on my mother's knee now to be spread on the mother's table. I don't understand that, Lord. How do you allow the same priests and prophets that prayed in the temple now, Lord, to die of thirstation and starvation in the temple? I don't understand that, Lord. But you see, there's a lot of things that happen in our lives that we don't have to understand. Because the Lord's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are our thoughts. The people in the city began to die. And after 2 years, when they could no longer put up a struggle or could put up a battle, Nebuchadnezzar would raid the city. And he would kill most of the people there in the city. The prophet described blood as coming down like rain. The prophet describes smoke in the city. He describes weeping and mourning there in the city. Darkness in the city. No sounds of joy, no sounds of music in the city. And as the city was being destroyed, he describes bodies of people being stacked up like grains of corn. Death and destruction all around the prophet by the name of Jeremiah. Jeremiah would be afraid. And he would begin to think about the future. And he thought that all hope was gone. But as he witnessed all of the destruction all around him, he began to think things over. And he had a glimmer of hope. Jeremiah decided about the goodness of God and about the mercies of God. He decided he was going to write down everything that he saw. He decided he was going to even write down his own emotions and his own feelings. And he would write those emotions and those feelings down. And one day they would be recorded. And the events and the sights and the scenes that Jeremiah saw, we now know as the great book of Lamentation. And Jeremiah would be the author. The book is so important that at least once a year, all Jews would read it as they remember the day that the Lord came, but also the same time how the Lord still and always have and continue to make a way. When one really looks back at today's story, we'll find that Jeremiah found himself in a bad, as he thought it, situation. He thought he was in a situation where things couldn't get any worse. This is as bad as it gets. So many times in life I hear people saying things can't get any worse, and this is as bad as it gets. But I want to tell you a secret. Things could be a whole lot worse. In fact, if you were sitting there, you're listening to my voice today, all of us could be dead, sleeping in our grave. Things could be a whole lot worse than they are. Some people, my mother used to say, boy, there's somebody always a little worse off than you are. There are a lot of people who right now wish they had what you had. Years ago, there was a movie by Eddie Murphy, Trading Places. You'll be surprised the people who would love to trade places today with you. Somebody said, well, Pastor, I ain't got but just a little, and I don't know. But let me tell you something about that little. There's some folks wish they could have just that little that you think they got. Well, you may have a little. There's some folks that don't have anything. Sometimes we got to learn to quit complaining and just thank God for what little you think that you do have. The prophet by the name of Jeremiah, he thought one way, and eventually he would think another way. His emotions went from sadness to sorrow. They went from sympathy to empathy. They went from fear to frustrations. Sometimes life is like that, depending on the situation that we're in. Our emotions sometimes are just like a merry-go-round. They go up and down and round and around. But sometimes we have to be careful about making decisions based on our current situation. My mama used to say, boy, you got to be able to look further than your nose. And what that really means is that this situation just may be temporary, and this too shall pass. Sometimes people go out and hurt themselves and go out and harm themselves and even kill themselves for a temporary situation. You see, things in our lives are going to change. Situations going to change. People going to change. But there is one thing that will never change, and that is the God we serve. The God we serve, he's the same God yesterday. Lord have mercy. And forevermore. But when I began to think about this book and the prophet by the name of Jeremiah, Jeremiah found himself in an awkward situation. He found himself in the destruction of the city. All of his friends was gone. All the loved one was gone. He found himself in the eye of a storm. But even in the eye of a storm, Lord, he was able to find some peace. When I think about the eye of a storm, I think about the eye of a storm, I think about a hurricane. When a hurricane pilot, when they fly not around a storm, when they fly into a storm. When they fly into a storm, there's lightning, there's flashing, and the chilly winds begin to blow. But once they get inside of a storm, Lord, there is peace. There is joy inside of a storm. You got to learn to find peace. You got to learn to find joy. You got to learn to find happiness, even inside of a storm. When I think about our current situation, we're living in a pandemic. And let me tell you something about the pandemic. Oh, yes, you may have to wear a mask here, and you got to wear a mask there. But when you're thinking about it, you're still alive. You may have to wash your hands here, and you may have to wash your hands there, but you're still alive. You might have to shelter in place here. You got to shelter in place there, but you're still, I said, you're still alive. When I picked up the Sunday's paper, I didn't read my name in the paper. That means they could have been reading about me instead of they still talking about me. I could have been having graveside service, but now I'm able to have curbside service. I'm still alive. You need to thank God that I'm still, in spite of it all, I'm still alive. I want to tell you one thing. A lot of people tell me when I was growing up, my mother would tell me one thing. She would let me know when somebody do something good to you, you might not be able to pay them, but you ought to have some common sense to learn how to tell them. But I'm still trials and tribulation, but I may not have a job, but I may be sick, but I may not have any money, but I'm still alive.